Today is December 6th, 2005. We're at the Fall River Visitor Center in Estes Park with Jack Rumley. Will you state your name and how long you have lived in Estes Park?
Jack Rumley. I've lived here since June of 1968.
Why did your family move to Estes Park?
I was transferred here by Public Service Company when we brought the natural gas in.
And what were your first impressions of Estes Park?
Very quaint, very friendly, very friendly.
What was it like to raise children in Estes Park?
Fantastic. It was fantastic. They got a great education, lived in an atmosphere where there was very, very little trouble. Didn't have to worry about them every second of the day.
Mm-hmm. Can you speak a little bit more about some of the benefits and if there were any drawbacks that you might have also thought of?
No drawbacks to speak of. The benefits were, as I said, an excellent education. There was always something for them to do. In the wintertime, it was sledding and ice skating, and in the summertime, it was fishing and hiking, and just general neighborhood kids that played together and got along well.
You have held a lot of public appointed positions. Have you always had an interest in government?
Yes, very much so. I hoped that I could help in some way in anything that I ever went into.
Can you tell me about your role with the Upper Thompson Sanitation District?
I was elected to the board when the district was established.
And when was that?
Oh, Lord. That was a lot of years ago. In the 70s.
And then your role evolved after that?
Yes, as a board member, along with other board members, very, very active people, we got the sanitation plant built. We got the lines installed all over the valley and basically cleaned up the environment.
Can you talk a little bit more about what you did to clean up the environment?
Well, number one, getting rid of all of the septic systems that were in the valley, polluting the groundwater. The Upper Thompson, of course, taking care of the sewage end of it, cleaned up the groundwater considerably, and has grown and grown and grown to the business it is now, which is very, very large.
Mm-hmm. How would you say that the Upper Thompson Sanitation District has changed over the years? Has its scope broadened or narrowed?
It's broadened considerably. They're constantly bringing in new areas. The expansion of the plant shows that. Originally it was about half the size it is now, and it has expanded considerably through the years and through the increase of users.
What would you say was the greatest challenge that you faced in your job there?
Getting the residents to sign up and hook up to the sewer system. I think there were a number that were very skeptical, thinking that it was just a flash in the pan, and we proved to them that it wasn't, that it was actually something that was going to become a real asset to the town of Estes Park and the area in general.
So you had to go out and try and get people to sign up
We had to convince them to sign up. There were a lot of questions that had to be answered, and some of them were very difficult, and it took a complete board to answer those questions.
Why would people be hesitant to sign up for it?
I really don't know, other than the fact that they had been on septic systems for years and hadn't had any problems, and it was hard to convince them that, you know, now's the time to hook up and get this groundwater cleared up, because we're drinking it, let's face it.
How or has the UTSD changed along with Estes Park's population?
As I said, they've increased in size. They're a well organized group. They've kept the mill levy relatively low and provided a fantastic service.
Can you tell me about your involvement with the town board?
It was very brief. We were living within the city limits when I was elected to the town board. A little over a year after I was elected onto the board, we moved outside the city limits, and of course the state statutes are very clear. You have to live in the city limits, so I had to resign my position.
What kinds of issues did you face while you were on the town board?
I think the biggest issue we faced was the energy crisis in the 70s. Trying to convince people that you're going to have to conserve, and trying to get people to understand that changing the windows in their houses and insulating and making the home a little tighter saved them a lot of money in the end. It was a difficult time.
What would you say that you accomplished as a team as part of the town board?
Lord, we did a lot of things. The planning for the new water treatment plant started many years ago, and has finally become a reality.
What time period actually would that have been in?
That was in the 70s,
okay.
Yes. Parking was a big issue, still is a big issue, but it was an issue that we tried to resolve with the acquisition of various areas in town that were turned into parking lots. That probably was the biggest issue while I was on the board.
So maybe we could talk about different time periods, then issues in the 70s, issues in the 80s. What other types of challenges did you face?
Well, as I said, my time on the board was very limited. It was just a year, or a little over, and it's been tough to sit back and see some of the things that are going on and some of the things that you think should be going on, and not be able to do anything about it. It was kind of tough.
Can you tell me about your involvement with the fire department?
Well, I became a member in 1972. In 1976, I was elected assistant chief under Bob Cheney, who was the chief. At that particular time, Bob was very adamant about the training that the fire department needed, and he established the training program. He retired in 77 or 78 as chief, and I was elected as chief and continued his policies and programs, and was very proud of the fact that as a volunteer fire department, we had almost every member certified at the state level as firefighter 1 or firefighter 2.
What kinds of training did you do?
Anything that would help us with the suppression of structure fires, wildland fires, automobile accidents, extrication, medical, tremendous amount of medical, CPR, everyone was certified with CPR. We had at one time 8 or 9 EMTs on the fire department. Now I guess the number is a lot greater than that. We spent a tremendous amount of time book studying, which was not real popular. When you get out of school, you don't want to go back and read books and take tests, but we tried to keep the guys up to date and keep them as well trained as possible.
What specific roles have you played within the fire department?
Well, there's been a lot of them. The one thing that I'm probably the proudest of is the fact that I never asked anyone on the fire department to do anything that I myself would not do, regardless of what it was. As I said, we worked hard. We acquired a lot of new equipment, a tremendous amount of new equipment. We ended up with a new pumper, a rescue truck, and eventually a new ladder truck. Let's see, what else? We had a mini pumper that we used for forest fires and dumpster fires within the city limits. We worked very hard to get the new fire station built. We had a lot to do with the planning that went into it and how it was laid out. And I say we because it wasn't just me, it was all of the officers in the department were involved in it.
And your specific roles have been throughout the years?
Well, as I said, I went on the fire department in 1972, was elected assistant chief in 76, was elected chief in 78 or 79, and served as chief for 17 years.
Can you tell me what sorts of changes you have noticed in the downtown sector over the years?
A tremendous number of changes. There were a lot of family-owned businesses that had been in Estes Park for many years. The Plantation Restaurant, the Log Cabin Kitchen, Bon Appetit, that were all owned by people who resided in Estes Park. Those are all gone now. And a lot of the changes are good. Some of them leave a little bit to be desired. There's been a tremendous change in Estes Park itself. The population has changed. It's basically retired people now, and the younger people are leaving and going elsewhere to find work. Some of it's good, some of it's bad.
What have you noticed about the visitors to Estes Park?
They just keep increasing. The traffic is something to behold in the summertime. It's different. It makes downtown Denver look like well, like a freeway. We don't move very fast up here.
Do you have any ideas about how the fire department's response to issues has changed over the years based on how the town has changed?
There's been a lot of changes made, as you say, based upon how the town has changed. The response time is fantastic. It's phenomenal for a volunteer group. It's something that a lot of departments would be proud of that are paid departments. On the average, the response time is in the city limits is 5 to 7 minutes. Outside the city limits is 7 to 15 minutes, depending on how far out it is. The great thing about the fire department is they no longer save foundations, they save buildings.
What kinds of, or what types of emergencies have you noticed throughout the years, and has that changed?
Automobile accidents have increased. Medical calls have increased tremendously. Basically because the volunteers are scattered all over the valley, and as I said, now I don't know how many EMTs they have on the department, but it's a good number. And in medical emergencies, sometimes your next door neighbor is a fireman who's an EMT and can be there in seconds instead of minutes. So it makes a big difference. Structure fires, I believe, are down considerably. Forest fires are down considerably from what they've been in years past. And this is a tribute to the fire department. They're just a great bunch of guys.
How about the communication and the devices and types of materials you've used to communicate throughout the years?
Well, when we started, we had what was called a plectron, which was a stationary unit that you had in your home, and if there was an alarm, they set off the plectron, gave you the location, and you went from there. Through the years, it has progressed now to where almost every fireman is carrying a two-way radio, so he's in constant communication with the officers and the dispatchers. And as I said, within seconds in most cases, they can be someplace and give you an idea of what you're looking at, and you know before you get there, so you can establish a plan.
How has Estes Park in general changed over the years? And you can talk about things that have been improvements and things that maybe aren't improvements.
For the most part, it's the changes have been great. As I said, I've been here since 1968, and I've seen a lot of changes. Most of them are very good. Sometimes one slips through the cracks that's not so good. But for the most part, the town itself has grown tremendously. The town board has done a tremendous job of keeping up on things. And hats off to the town employees. They do a tremendous job. Light and power, the water department, streets. There are a few places that get the snow plowed as quick as they do in Estes Park, and that's a real tribute to the town.
Now, were you working with the Upper Thompson Sanitation District when the Lawn Lake flood took place?
No, I was not. I had been off the board for several years at that point. I served 7 years on that board. And as I said, we got the plant built, we got the lines installed, and then it was just kind of day-to-day business. And at that point, I kind of lost interest in it and decided I'd go somewhere else.
Do you have any specific impressions of changes that have taken place since the Lawn Lake flood?
Yeah, the downtown area is a lot more attractive than it was before, and definitely a lot more attractive than it was the day of the flood. It left a lot to be desired, and there again, hats off to the people of Estes Park. They came out fighting, and look at it now.
And the Big Thompson Flood, do you have any specific memories of that?
Oh
time
yes,
period?
yes. We were very involved in the Big Thompson Flood, the fire department in general. We had a lot of tragedies happen while we were in the canyon during the flood. Things that you don't like to remember, but things that happened, and there wasn't really much we could do about it. It was a tragedy from the word go. We were very fortunate that the flood and the storm cell was where it was, as opposed to being over Estes Park. Had it been over Estes Park, we'd have had a real problem.
Where did it take place?
Actually, it took place, the major storm cell was just about over the Crocker Ranch. And that's about where the flood started, coming down the draws from the Crocker Ranch into the Big Thompson, and progressively got worse as it went down. 15 inches of rain in a little over 2 hours is a lot of rain.
And you were working with the fire department at that time?
Yes, I was, ma'am. I was with the assistant chief. Bob Cheney was the chief. We put as many people as we could get into the canyon to try to help people and get them out of there. But as I said, there were cases where there just wasn't anything we could do.
Is there anything else that you would like to add? Any specific thoughts that you have about how Estes Park in general has changed throughout this time period?
Not really. As I said, the town has grown tremendously. We're at the point now where we're just about out of ground to build things on, but for the most part, the changes are good. They're all good. It's become, from the small little town that it was in 1968 to a really progressive city.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.